News with Rich Herrera on News Radio WRVA.
You're darn right I am. It's 9:34 this morning here on Richmond's Morning News. I'm Rich Herrera. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We call this the 933 experiment. Why? We open up the phone lines. I don't know how this is going to go, honestly. I mean, this is radio, live radio without a safety net. We open up the phone lines to get your thoughts. Again, I sincerely believe more speech is better than less speech, and I sincerely believe that everyday Americans need to have their voices heard because, quite honestly, the influencers and the elites think that they really are in charge, and they're not. It's up to us. We just have to rediscover our voice. Let me go to Charles. Here's what we're talking about, Charles. Anthony Fauci went before Congress 111 times. He invoked the fifth. Was it needed? Was it silly? Was it a sideshow? Was it a circus? Did he need to be held accountable in some of the decisions he made? Does it still affect you today, all these years later? Welcome. You're on News Radio WRVA.
Okay. Good morning. I think it was mostly a sideshow because, sometimes when we as people, when we think somebody's out to get us with something, and you already know what the answer is going to be, like in my situation, a lot of times when people come at me with something ridiculous, I would say, you know what, I'm not going to dignify that with a response. And I think that's the way Fauci did yesterday. Now, however, as far as COVID itself, it was a little pros and cons when it came to me because I'm in the furniture business and I lost one deal alone that was like $20,000 a month. So that was a con. But then on the pro side, I was able to buy a house because of the housing market. I bought a house with a 3% interest rate in Rivers Bend. So that was definitely a pro to me. I went to Kenya, East Africa for 21 days because a lot of people wasn't traveling. So when I look at situations like that, sometimes I have to weigh both sides. Of course, I lost on one side, but I gained on the other side.
How much do you love the fact that you've got a 3% mortgage right now, right?
Yes.
I mean, yeah. So let me ask you this. If they knew that he was going to, I don't know that they thought he was going to plead the fifth because he had that pardon from the president. Would you have wanted him to answer anything, or was it cool with you? Like, I'm pleading the fifth. I'm not saying anything to you guys.
I basically would have did the same thing. I would have pleaded the fifth.
How come?
Because some things, if you open a can of worms, you got to deal with it. If you keep it closed, it's closed.
But so I get that from Fauci's standpoint, but what about from your standpoint? Was there something that you think he should come clean or something that he should have answered?
It's kind of hard to say because I lost a lot of loved ones during COVID, especially older people.
Right.
A lot of temples I couldn't even go to, because of the situations. Can't sit close together. They don't want you in there. You got to wear the N95 mask and all that. And a lot of things I was against, and I actually caught COVID twice.
As did I, yeah.
So
it was mine. One was bad. One wasn't as bad. But Charles, for me,
it was the same way with me. One was mild, the other one was hit real hard.
Yeah. I mean, but Charles, here's the one thing. Here's what I really want to know, for my own purposes. Where did it really start?
I honestly thought that it started in a lab in China.
Right.
Honestly, that's my personal feelings. It's something that once something is started, it's kind of hard to deal with.
Yeah.
It's spread, just like the AIDS virus, it's spread. It's just like the Ebola thing. If you don't get a hold on it right away, if you play around with it, it's going to spread, And right now, we don't know exactly how many man-made viruses there are existing in the world today.
And see, that's where I think, even if you think he was right or wrong, whatever, the fact that, are we prepared for the next time something like this pops up? Now think about this, Charles. How many people are going to get upset the next time they go, hey, we're gonna flatten the curve. We need everybody to isolate. There's nobody in the world that's going to do it because they're not going to trust the government anymore. That's the biggest problem I saw of all of this, is the long-lasting ramifications. We don't trust our leaders anymore because of what happened during COVID, and he was the face of a lot of that.
And I agree with you on that. I have to agree with you on that.
Hey, Charles.
Yeah.
How was your trip?
The trip was great, man. I went to the safari over there. We stayed in the safari for like 5 days.
Wow.
My wife is from Kenya. I'm not. And it was beautiful. A lot of things that I saw over there I would never imagine as far as the business.
Had you traveled internationally before?
No, that was the first time that I ever did. It was a long flight, but to me it was worth it.
See, since I've taken this job, I went to Italy. First time I ever traveled internationally. I went to Ireland. Our next trip, we're going to go to Mount Rushmore in October, and then we have a couple trips planned for next year where we're taking listeners. So it's crazy that I never left the country first time. So I'm kind of jealous of you going on that safari. Hey, I appreciate you calling into the program, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, now listen to your show a lot, man. You take care. Enjoy your weekend.
All right, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Number for you to join us, 833-804-1140, 833-804-1140. Hey, Terry on line one, welcome. You're on News Radio WRVA.
Well, thank you for having me. Rick, I will give you a health issue that occurred from the COVID shots. After the third shot, I developed Guillain-Barré syndrome, and it absolutely wrecked my health to the point where I was living in a doctor's office for about 6 months. And it wrecked me mentally because they could not figure out what was going on.
Terry, can I jump in here with you? You said what
Sure.
You suffered from after the third. I've heard the name, but I'm not familiar with what it is. Would you mind sharing with us?
Yeah, Guillain-Barré syndrome is where your body attacks itself. In other words, the shot supercharges your immune system and your body attacks itself. And it's common in vaccines, but it's more common in some of the COVID vaccines. Of course, I know all this now in hindsight.
Right.
But the people sometimes minimize these health effects, but they are real. And I lost weight. I probably lost 30% of my body weight. My family, it affected me so badly mentally because I'd always been a very robust person.
Active person.
And then they had to put me on suicide watch. So it affected me mentally as well as physically.
Right.
But I think that as far as Fauci goes, his ego overloaded his judgment, and he began to think of himself as the absolute arbiter. In any time that some one person gets that much power with no accountability, you're going to run into problems. And I would have yesterday, if he would have just said, look, I made a lot of mistakes. We learned a lot. We could have done better. And I apologize. That would have been a good resolution. He's not going to be held accountable. There are too many people who, don't want him to be held accountable because they base.
Why do you think that is?
Well, you've got a news media that backed him, and of course at the time, it was all about get Trump and try to create as much chaos as possible during COVID to unseat Trump. And Fauci obviously is not a fan of Trump. So I think that played into it. And I think that there are a lot of people who need to apologize to Americans beyond Fauci, particularly in the political class and in the science class. They hate to say this and be so abrupt, but Fauci verges on being a mass murderer in some respects, because he knew things that he did not share with the world and with the public that could have made a real difference. And he didn't share them because his ego and he was protecting himself.
So let me talk about this with you for just a second. By the way, how are you doing now?
I'm doing great.
Good.
I'm still being monitored very closely. I have to go to the doctor pretty often because there's a chance I might have a relapse.
Okay. Well, number one, you're going to be in my thoughts and my prayers. When I go to church on Sunday, I'll make sure I say a prayer for you.
Thank you.
Where do I start? One thing that we've been talking about, but this is a universal truth. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And when you have a part of our society and government and media that just puts you on this pedestal, you get to just feel like you're omnipotent and no one challenge you. And that's where the one comment, and it's a quote that is going to haunt him for the rest of his life, is trust the science and I am the science. It makes him sound like an evil supervillain, right?
Certainly does. As a churchgoer, and you are as well as I am, to say the word I am anything, you best be careful when you use that term.
I think one of the things that happened was people. Here's one thing I think that you said that I'm going to read between the lines. I want to make sure that I'm getting this. One thing I think we all have to admit is there was no playbook. No one knew what was going on. No one had best practices, and we were making this thing up as we were going. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
I think that's the problem, is that we were, listen, I'll be honest, I was scared. I think there were a lot of people that were scared. I was scared for my health. I was scared for my family's health. My brother ended up in the hospital, pretty severe case of COVID. I was scared for him. We were all petrified. And then the world just started feeling like we were in a horror movie or an apocalyptic movie when you see Quonset huts being set up and you see people driving through getting shots, and you see it just became surreal. And we were all so discombobulated or scared that we were just looking for a hero. We were looking for someone to show up with Superman on their chest. We were looking for the helicopters to come in to save us all, the people in the black Suburbans to show up and make it all go away. And Anthony Fauci stepped into that void that we were looking for. And people ran to him going, please tell us what to do.
Well, that's a trap in and of itself.
Exactly.
Because it's when first off, the main thing, and I'm in business, and I've always told myself, when some big problem comes along, the first thing is don't panic. When you make a panic decision, it's almost always wrong. That's first rule
right.
in trying to make good decisions. But the second thing is never put your full trust in one human being. And when you make him the face of everything, first off, you're asking a person, you're saying and assuming that person's always going to make the right decision. And that's almost an impossibility. So I think that there are two traps that we fell in. One is the panic trap, and the second was the putting too much faith in one institution or one person, particularly since that one person had never had any real experience in what was going on. Nobody
None of us
had
did.
any real experience.
And by the way, can
So
I just make this political for half a second? You know what?
Sure.
I've just got to bring this up because the Socialist Democrats of America want to eliminate the Supreme Court, the presidency, and all the rest of this. That's what makes America special, is because we do have checks and balances. The president can't get too powerful. Supreme Court will knock him down a peg. Congress will knock him down a peg. Congress can't get too powerful. The president will knock them down. Supreme Court knocks them down. Supreme Court can't get too big because they got to answer the president and Congress. It's a check and balance to make sure that hubris doesn't bring us all down. Anthony Fauci fell prey to hubris because there was no one to tell him he was wrong, and anybody that stood up to him. I brought this up yesterday. I just know it because it's the hometown where my mom and dad are buried and where my brother and sister live. There were two doctors that had a clinic in Bakersfield, California. They said, hey, ivermectin will work, and they put it up on YouTube. They were one of the first people to be shut down. shunned, told to shut up, and driven away and cast from society because they dare challenged him. When that happened, I got scared because if we can't have anybody have any conversation, hubris was coming, and that's what happened to us.
Well, you know, anytime, and I'll be political for a second too. In order for the socialist system to work, they're going to have to dismantle the system we have that's served us pretty well for 250 years. But they basically are going to substitute a tyranny, a democratic tyranny, and people don't realize that in many cases people vote in a socialist government, but it's mighty hard to get rid of it.
You can always vote your way in. You can't vote your way out.
Yeah.
Hey, I gotta run, Terry, because we're up against the clock. God bless you. I hope you're feeling better, and I want to talk to you again soon. Let me grab Mike real quick before we get to the top of the hour. Hey, Mike, welcome. You're on News Radio WRVA.
Hey, Rich, welcome to Richmond and all. Just want to say, nobody's saying the M word, which is murderer. He is a murderer. He's complicit accessory before the fact in many of the COVID deaths. He was involved in developing the damn thing. And he's an accessory after the fact when he lied to people and suppressed anything other than a shot for COVID. There's now come out, there's plenty of other things that treated people early and even later. And he was pushing remdesivir, which he was involved with back in AIDS time, and has been known to kill people, kills 1 in 5 people, destroys your liver. He's a murderer, and you need to call him a murderer every time you mention his name. The murderer, Dr. Fauci. Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks for the call. Again, I can't jump to that conclusion. Let me ask you this. Do we know that he thought he was doing wrong? Did he do it on purpose? Did he know what he was doing? I don't know, because he didn't answer any questions yesterday. That's why this is so darn frustrating. So darn frustrating. But I appreciate everybody for calling in. I mean, Charles, Terry, and listen, all of these were great calls. Minute. I really appreciate all of you. That's why, listen, this is my favorite part of the show when I get to talk to you all. I love this part. That was awesome. And again, I respect everybody's opinion. That's why I open up the phone lines, and we've carved this part out for the program. All right, they're telling me to shut up and talk or get out of the way. All right. Actually, I got a bunch of meetings I got to get to next. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up here on Richmond's Morning News. Let me remind everybody that our national anthem is coming up next. Is brought to you by our friends at Freedom Services and Training, the biggest little gun store in town, located in Mechanicsville. We'll be back tomorrow morning with you at 6 a.m. Oh, by the way, I got a special guest coming up. You remember the band Hanson, Bop? You're not going to want to miss tomorrow's show. Also, Governor George Allen and Dave Saunders stops by. There's a reason why I get up every morning, and all of us do. A couple things I really believe in. One is my family, the other is my country. That's why we get up every morning early without fail to bring you Richmond's Morning News. I'll talk to you tomorrow morning, beginning at 6, right here on News Radio WRVA.
Please stand for the national anthem of the United States of America. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming?